Today, the colour blue surrounds us as a common and gentle presence in our daily lives. Yet if we turn back the wheel of time to the Renaissance, this legendary pigment travelled thousands of miles on the backs of slow-moving camels along the Silk Road to reach the Western world. In the dimly lit workshops of Europe, masters like Michelangelo and Vermeer spent weeks in absolute stillness, grinding down the precious stone known as Lapis Lazuli in the dark to capture the ethereal light of the heavens for the robes of the Virgin Mary. The history of this royal blue is not merely a tale of ancient trade routes, but a silent epic of human patience and the quiet weight of ordinary objects transformed into something divine. Hello, friend. I'm so glad to be here with you in the quiet safety of the night. Have you found a truly comfortable position for your body on your bed? Softly adjust your pillow so it cradles your head just right. Pull that warm blanket around your shoulders to ease away the tightness of around your shoulders, to ease away the tightness of a long day. Let your eyes close slow and easy, releasing any tension holding onto your forehead. Loosen your jaw, drop your shoulders, and let go of everything that happened outside your door. Right now, the busy world is fading into the shadows, leaving only warmth in this darkened room. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything at all right now. You don't need to plan for tomorrow. Just let your breath rise and fall, soft and steady. Let my voice be a gentle companion, a low and steady rhythm guiding your mind into an ancient space where time slows to a whisper. Let us travel back through the centuries together, finding ourselves on a cold winter night in December of the year Motten Tam, inside a small artist Urk's workshop, hidden deep within a narrow cobblestone alley in Rome. The world outside is blanketed in a deep, heavy silence. Only the north wind brushes against the old oak shutters, creating a soft rhythmic rustle, like a quiet conversation between the earth and the sky. Inside the room, a small brick hearth glows with a low fire. The dry firewood occasionally lets out a tiny soft crackle, releasing the comforting grounding scent of pine wood and a gentle wisp of warm smoke. The amber light from a single beeswax candle on the table sways lazily with the drafts, casting long soft shadows across the rough brick walls, which are dusted with the quiet passing of time and old sketches. In the corner of the room, a painter sits completely still upon a tall wooden stool, his body wrapped in a heavy coarse wool cloak to keep out the midnight chill. His eyes look softly into the space before him, listening to the gentle hum of the fire. Resting on the thick marble table in front of him are a few rough fragments of stone, possessing a deep, midnight blue hue, scattered with the glittering gold specks of pyrite. This is Lapis Lazuli, a rare mineral that has just completed a journey halfway across the earth to rest in this very room. The artist gently cradles a small piece in his calloused palm, feeling its cold, smooth yet angular texture, a primitive weight resting in his hand. To turn these rough stones into smooth, vivid paint, the artist must prepare for weeks of patient labour, a task entirely free of distractions, and a heart entirely free of distraction. As we prepare to follow the path of this sacred blue stone together, remember that this space with whispers of centuries is a work of creative historical narrative constructed solely for entertainment, relaxation, and educational purposes. While every detail is rooted deeply in verified archives, certain scenes and atmospheres become to provide an immersive auditory experience. You are completely safe here. There is nothing you need to accomplish tonight, so just let your thoughts drift away like autumn leaves on a quiet stream, feeling the deep comfort of your bed as we begin our journey into the past. The winter air in Rome during the early 16th century carries a specific quiet weight, Outside the small workshop, the cobblestones of the narrow alleyway are coated with a thin layer of frost, glistening faintly under the pale, cold moonlight. Inside, the atmosphere is thick with the slow, unhurried passage of time. The painter's hands, rough and calloused from years of gripping wooden brushes and heavy chisels, move with a deliberate, calm rhythm. He reaches out to touch the heavy bronze mortar resting on the edge of the wooden workbench. Its metal surface is cold to the touch, dulled by decades of constant use, bearing the faint scratches and tiny dents of thousands of mineral stones that came before it. Next to the mortar sits the small precious pile of raw lapis lazuli. Each raw stone is about the size of a walnut, its exterior covered in a chalky pale limestone crust that hides the deep cosmic ocean beneath. To an untrained eye, these stones might look like ordinary rocks pulled from a dry riverbed, but to the artist a small miracle of geography, patience, and ancient trade. Let yourself sink just a little bit deeper into your mattress as you picture this quiet, forgotten scene. Listen to the imaginary sound of the wind outside the workshop, a soft, distant sigh that only emphasizes the absolute safety and warmth of the room you are in right now. Maybe you are completely protected from the cold, wrapped safely in your own blanket, just as the artist is wrapped in his heavy wool cloak. The candle on the workbench flickers once, casting a momentary long shadow across the jars of cold-pressed linseed oil, clarified walnut oil, and small linen bags filled dried earth pigments and aromatic resins. The smell of the workspace is unique and deeply grounding. It is a rich blend of earthy clay, the sharp, clean tang of natural turpentine, the sweet aroma of melting beeswax, and the cutting scent of dry pine logs burning down to white ash in the hearth. Every breath the artist takes is slow and measured, mirroring the rhythm of the embers. Pulsing with a dim, orange light, he picks up a small iron hammer, its wooden handle smooth and darkened by the natural oils of his skin over many years. He places the first piece of lapis lazuli onto a thick sheet of lead. The lead is soft, meant to absorb the shock of the blow, do not shatter into uncontrollable fragments. He lifts the hammer just a few inches above the stone. There is no rush, there is no pressure to finish this work tonight. The creation of art in this era moves at the speed of nature itself. The artist lets the hammer fall with a controlled, dull thud that echoes softly in the quiet room. A tiny piece of the outer limestone crust flakes away, revealing a glimpse of the breathtaking, deep ultramarine blue beneath. It is a blue so intense and pure that it seems to absorb the dim candlelight rather than reflect it. It is the exact colour of the sky just after the sun has fallen below the horizon, when the very first stars begin to show themselves in the velvet darkness. This stone, which now rests quietly in a dark room in Rome, spent millions of years forming under immense pressure and heat deep within the earth. It has crossed wide rivers, climbed treacherous mountains, and sailed across vast rolling seas just to reach this specific wooden table. The journey of this stone is a testament to how deeply humanity has always craved beauty, and how willing we are to wait for it. To understand how this tiny fragment of midnight blue arrived on a wooden table in Renaissance Italy, we must leave the candlelit warmth of Rome. We must let our minds drift backward across the Mediterranean Sea, over the rolling waves and the ancient coastal towns, moving eastward over vast expanses of sun-baked earth and shifting desert sands. Our journey takes us hat up into the rugged, unforgiving peaks of the Hindu Kush Mountains, specifically to the remote and isolated region of Badakhshan. In northeastern Afghanistan, here, far above the clouds, where the air is incredibly thin and sharp with the scent of perpetual snow, lies the ancient valley of the Kokcha River. For thousands of years, this specific, desolate landscape has been the true cradle of the world's finest Lapis Lazuli. The mountains rise up like giant, jagged teeth, made of grey granite and white marble, keeping watch over a secret that the earth has guarded for over 6,000 years. Imagine the profound stillness of these high-altitude peaks during the deep winter months. The wind sweeps down from the summits, carrying with it a biting chill that freezes the moisture in the air into tiny diamond dust in the pale sunlight, that glint like diamond dust. There are no trees up here, no green fields, only the raw, majestic scale of stone and sky. Deep inside these precipitous limestone cliffs, ancient miners carved out narrow, winding tunnels by hand, following the hidden veins of blue that ran through the white marble like frozen bolts of cosmic lightning. This particular deposit, known as Sa-e-sang, produced a grade of lapis lazuli that could be found nowhere else on the planet. It was a stone of such deep, saturated blue, so completely free from the pale streaks of calcite that ruined lesser deposits, that it was deemed worthy of kings, pharaohs, and gods. As you listen to the distant whistle of the mountain wind in your mind, let yourself feel even more secure and grounded in the quiet sanctuary of your own space. If this journey through the forgotten corners of time is bringing a sense of calm and comfort to your evening, you might take a brief, effortless moment to softly hit the subscribe button or leave a gentle thumbs up, sharing a quiet comment about where you are listening from. Tonight helps our small community at Whispers of Centuries grow, allowing us to keep weaving these peaceful tapestries of history for you. But for now, there is nothing else required of you. Just let your shoulders sink deeper into the mattress. Breathe in the cool, clean air of your room, and continue to float along with the rhythm of the story. The ancient miners who worked these Hattie-Go-Hat rock faces faced a life defined by immense isolation and a quiet, steady perseverance. They worked by the dim, smoky light of torches made from animal fat and dry mountain scrub, their breath forming small white clouds in the freezing subterranean air. The technique they used to extract the stone from the stubborn mountain walls was a slow, elemental dance of fire and ice. They would build large wood fires directly against the face of the rock, waiting patiently for hours as the intense heat caused the hard stone to expand and crack. Then, using leather buckets, they would douse the scorching rock with freezing water carried up from the icy river below. The sudden, violent shock of temperature would cause the marble to fracture with a sharp, ash-echoing snap, revealing the hidden treasures of deep blue nested safely within. The creation of Lapis Lazuli is a story that unfolds across immense, unimaginable stretches of geological time, far beyond the brief fall of ancient human memory or the rise and fall of ancient civilizations. Deep beneath the roots of the towering mountains, millions of years before the first wandering nomad ever set foot in the high valleys of Afghanistan, the earth was quietly, patiently working in the absolute dark. This sacred blue stone was not merely born, it was forged through a slow, rhythmic dance of elemental forces deep within the planet's crust. It began with the shifting of ancient continental plates, pressing against one another with an unimaginable, silent weight that compressed the land over thousands of centuries. Deep within these subterranean chambers, layers of primitive limestone and marble were subjected to intense sockets of molten magma boiling far below. Under this extreme pressure, a remarkable transformation, a metamorphic alchemy, began to take place in total stillness. Let your mind rest on the vastness of this silent ancient world as you sink a little deeper into the comfort of your bed. There is no rush in the way the earth builds its treasures, just as there is no rush for you. Every layer of tension in your body can melt away, just like the ancient stones softening under the deep warmth of the Earth's mantle. You are perfectly still, perfectly safe, listening to the slow rhythm of time passing. During this ancient transformation, the ordinary minerals within the limestone began to dissolve and recombine at a molecular level. Atoms of sodium, aluminum, silicon, and oxygen bonded together in a delicate, geometric lattice, trapping tiny amounts of sulfur within their structure. It is this specific arrangement of sulfur atoms that absorbs all visible light, except for the most vibrant, celestial blue, reflecting back the hue that would one day capture the imaginations of the world's greatest artists. As the hot mineral-rich fluids moved slowly through the fractures of the white marble, they left behind thick, undulating veins of pure lazurite. But the earth did not stop. Into this deep ocean of blue, nature introduced tiny microscopic particles of iron disulfide, which we know today as pyrite, over countless millennia. These particles crystallized into shimmering golden flecks that scattered across the blue field like distant galaxies trapped within a solid sky, where, at the same time, delicate streaks of white calcite wove through the stone, mimicking the soft, wispy clouds that drift across a midnight sky. For millions of years, these beautiful stones remained buried in the pitch-black womb of the mountain, untouched by light, unknown to any living creature, waiting in perfect, undisturbed silence for the moment they would be discovered by human hands. The passage of time in those Hat caves of Badakhshan was measured not by clocks, but by the steady rhythmic beat of iron tools against rock, and the slow consumption of dry wood fires. Imagine the ancient miners who spent their days and nights inside these narrow, frozen tunnels. They were men of immense resilience and quiet strength, bound to the mountain by generations of tradition. To enter the caves, they had to leave behind the blinding white glare of the snow-covered peaks and step into a subterranean world of absolute shadow. Inside, the only light came from primitive torches made of tightly bound mountain grass and dried animal fat. The torches burned with a low, smoky orange flame, casting long, dancing shadows along the white marble walls and illuminating the veins of blue that waited in the dark. The air inside the tunnels was thin and crisp, carrying the cold mineral scent of crushed limestone, the sharp tang of sulfur, and the comforting grounding aroma of burning wood charcoal. Let your body settle deeply into your mattress as you listen to the imagined sounds of this ancient slow labour. A quiet, steady repetition that clears the mind of all modern noise. You are wrapped in your own warm sanctuary tonight, perfectly safe from the biting mountain cold, entirely protected by the comfort of your room. The process of mining the Lapis Lazuli was an exercise in pure, unhurried patience. Because the surrounding marble was incredibly hard, the miners could not simply chip away at it with their iron picks without breaking their tools. Instead, they used the ancient wisdom of thermal shock. First, they would spend hours carrying heavy bundles of dry mountain brushwood up the steep, narrow paths and into the deepest chambers of the mine. They would stack the wood carefully against the rock face where the blue veins were visible, creating a dense, structured transform. When the fire was lit, the dark cave would transform. The flickering light would wash over the stones, illuminating the hidden bands of deep ultramarine and making the flecks of gold pyrite sparkle like a captive constellation. The miners would sit back against the cold stone floor, watching the flames rise, feeling the intense heat radiate outward, warming their cold hands and faces. The only sounds were the crackling of the dry wood and the heavy rhythmic breathing of the men in the thin mountain air. After the fire had burned for many hours and the rock face had become intensely hot, The miners would prepare for the final, crucial step. They had already brought up heavy leather skins, filled their kepte hat freezing water from the Kokcha River, which ran icy and clear at the base of the mountain. Standing back, they would throw the cold water onto the scorching rock, a great white cloud into the air, filling the chamber with warmth and moisture. Mipi was warm through the mist. A sharp echoing snap would ring out through the tunnels. The sudden change in temperature caused the brittle marble to crack and fracture. With gentle, deliberate strokes of their iron hammers, the miners could then pry loose the large slabs of stone, revealing the raw, unpolished lapis lazuli nestled safely inside. They would handle these blue fragments with a quiet reverence, knowing that each piece was a rare gift from the dark heart to the world of the mountain, ready to begin its journey to the world outside. Once the raw blocks of stone were separated from the mountain walls, they were brought out into the pale, cold light of the mountain peak. Here, on the flat ledger of grey rock outside the cave entrance, the miners would gather to inspect their harvest under the vast open canopy of the Afghan sky. The transition from the absolute darkness of the tunnels to the crisp, white glare of the high-altitude day revealed the true personality of each fragment. When you look closely at a piece of raw lapis lazuli, its surface is not yet the smooth, glassy blue that we see in modern museums. It is rough, uneven, and heavily textured, covered in a fine, powdery dust of crushed limestone and white marble. Holding one of these stones in your hand is a deeply grounding experience. It feels entirely raw and elemental, a heavy weight that carries the chill of the deep earth within its core. Let your own body match that sense of heavy, undisturbed rest. Allow your limbs to feel weighted and completely relaxed against the soft surface of your bed. There is a profound comfort in simply staying still, letting go of the need to move, and allowing the quiet stories of the past to wash over you like a gentle tide. You are completely safe, nestled comfortably in the warmth of your room, far away from the cold mountain winds. As the miners brushed away the pale grey dust with their coarse wool cloths, the intricate patterns of the stone began to show themselves. The true beauty of lapis lazuli lies in this unpolished state, where the different minerals exist in a delicate natural harmony. There are veins of pure, milky white calcite that run across the deep blue lazurite like fragile rivers of ice-frozen mid-flow. But the most mesmer of the golden pyrite is the presence of the golden pyrite. Under the natural light of the sun, these tiny metallic inclusions catch the light, twinkling softly against the dark blue background. It looks precisely like a clear midnight sky captured and frozen into a solid form, a tiny fragment of the universe that you can hold in the palm of your hand. The miners would run their calloused thumbs over these rough textures, feeling the sharp ridges, the cool planes, and the subtle warmth that the stone began to absorb from their skin. They would sort the stones with great care, separating the lesser pieces with 2 hat white crust from the deep, solid blue stones that would command the highest price in the distant markets of the West. Each high-quality stone was gently placed into a soft pouch made of cured goatskin, lined with dried grass, to prevent the fragments from rubbing against one another during the long descent down the mountain trails. As these precious stones are safely packed away, preparing for their long journey across continents, and through time, we let our own minds settle into a state of quiet reflection. This journey we are sharing is a beautiful reminder of the connection between the ancient world and our modern peace. This content was developed with the assistance of advanced AI tools and edited by the editorial team at Whispers of Centuries. All rights reserved. Until next time, Listen closely to the whispers of the past, because you never know what timeless wisdom might quietly find its way into your night. Good night, everyone. Down from the freezing peaks of Badakhshan, the mountain trails wind steeply through narrow rock gorges, eventually flattening out into a small, dusty trading nestled in the foothills. It is here, in the quiet shelter of a low stone caravan station, that the true preparation for the long journey begins. The raw fragments of Lapis Lazuli, having survived the fire and ice of the high mines, are laid out on large woolen rugs spread across the hard-packed dirt floor. The air in this trading post is different from the sharp, thin air of the summits. It is thicker, carrying the rich, heavy aromas of roasted barley, old wood smoke, and the distinct musk-like scent of cured animal hides. The merchant, a man whose family has handled these bluestones for generations, kneels on the rug with a slow, deliberate calmness. His hands move with a quiet reverence as he prepares the goatskin pouches that will protect this precious cargo for thousands of miles across changing landscape. The goatskin bags used for this journey are not ordinary sacks. They are chosen for their durability, flexibility, and resistance to the harsh elements of the desert and the mountain passes. Each bag is made from thick, supple leather that has been cured with natural oils and animal fats, giving it a dark, rich brown colour and a heavy, textured surface that feels greasy and soft to the touch. Before any stones are placed inside, the merchant fills the dried mountain grass with a thick layer of dried mountain grass. This wild grass, harvested from the lower valleys during the brief summer months, is brittle and fragrant, releasing a sweet, herbal scent of sun-warmed earth whenever it is compressed. The grass acts as a natural cushion, a soft bed that will prevent the rough, angular edges of the unpolished lapis lazuli from rubbing against each other and grinding into useless blue dust during the long, jarring journey ahead. As you picture these old, worn leather pouches being packed with such meticulous care, let yourself feel that same gentle care wrapping around your own mind tonight. If you are finding a deep sense of rest and quiet comfort in these slow, ancient histories, you might choose to subscribe to Whispers of Centuries, ensuring we can always meet here again in the absolute stillness of the night. Softly hitting the like button or leaving a peaceful comment is a wonderful support our sanctuary, letting these stories drift into the nights of others who seek quiet. But for now, there is nothing else required of your body or your thoughts. Just let your shoulders sink a bit deeper into the mattress. Let your breath slow down and allow the steady rhythm of the past to carry you away into the dark. One by one, the merchant selects the deep blue fragments, wiping away the remaining white marble dust with his fingers, before nestling them into the grass-lined bags. He works in total silence, the only sound being the soft rustle of the dry grass and the low, distant murmuring of the camp outside. When a pouch is filled to the correct weight, he folds the thick leather over the top and begins the process of sealing it. He uses thick braided ropes made from raw hemp fibers, which are rough and scratchy against the skin. He pulls the ropes tight, looping them around the neck of the bag several times, tying slow, traditional knots that have been perfected over centuries of overland travel. These knots are tight and unyielding, designed to withstand the constant motion of the pack animals and the unpredictable weather of the road ahead. As each bag is secured, it is lifted and set aside, its heavy solid weight making a dull, satisfying thud against the earth. The stones are now fully protected, encased in leather, grass and rope, ready to be loaded onto the waiting caravan. When the first light of dawn breaks over the eastern horizon. The first light of dawn over the desert edge is not bright, but a soft, slate-grey mist that gently rolls across the crests of the sand dunes. The air is incredibly still, holding a sharp, lingering cold from the night before, a chill that makes the breath form small, faint clouds in the dimness. At the edge of the caravan station, the long line of camels stands waiting, their large, heavy bodies shifting slow pair for the demarch. Marlish. The packers move with a practiced, quiet efficiency, their boots making no sound against the soft earth. They lift the heavy goatskin pouches of Lapis Lazuli, feeling the solid, unyielding weight of the stones inside, and balance them carefully across the thick wooden pack saddles. Every load must be perfectly balanced, for an uneven weight would tire the animal over the long miles ahead. The smell here is a comforting mixture of coarse animal wool, cold dust, and the faint, sweet scent of dry mountain grass escaping from the seams of the leather bags. As the caravan finally begins to move, a deep, hypnotic rhythm takes over the entire world. It starts with the sound of the camel bells. These are not small, high-pitched trinkets, but large, heavy bells forged from dark bronze or iron, hanging low from the necks of the lead animals. With every slow, deliberate step of the camel, the heavy clapper strikes the inside of the bell, producing a low, resonant clong, clong, clong. It is a sound that does not pierce the silence, but settles into it, becoming a part of the vast emptiness around them. The rhythm is steady, unhurried, and perfectly predictable, matching the natural sway of the camel's long stride. To hear it is to lose all sense of urgency, to let go of the artificial hours of the modern world and surrender entirely to the ancient pace of the earth. The sound echoes softly off the faces of the nearby dunes, a gentle metallic heartbeat that accompanies the travellers through the misty grey morning. Let your own breathing fall into alignment with this slow, rhythmic cadence. Allow your mind to sway gently with the movement of the caravan, completely free from any need to arrive anywhere quickly, or you are simply moving forward, step by step, carried along by a force that has travelled these same paths for thousands of years. The bed beneath you is your own secure haven, completely safe from the shifting sands and the vast open sky. Looking down from the saddle, the desert floor reveals its own intricate textures in the early morning light. The sand is not uniform. It is a delicate tapestry of tiny countless grains of quartz and feldspar, smoothed by centuries of relentless wind. In the cool dawn, the sand holds a pale lavender hue, its surface marked by the rippling patterns left behind by the night breeze. When the wide, padded foot of a camel presses down, the sand gives way with a soft, muffled sigh, a quiet hiss, as the grains rearrange themselves under their heavy weight. The foot leaves behind a deep, round impression, a fleeting mark that the wind will gently erase by noon. There is a profound peace in watching this endless cycle of movement and stillness. The camels do not fight the sand. They move through it, their bodies perfectly adapted to the soft, unstable ground. The caravan moves as a single, quiet entity, a long ribbon of life tracing its way across a landscape that seems to have no beginning and no end. The leather straps holding the Lapis Lazuli bags creak softly. Verkep ite hat every step, a comforting familiar sound that blends with the low chime of the bells, guiding the precious blue stones further and further along their sacred path. As the long day of travel draws to a close, the caravan approaches the heavy arched stone gate of an ancient caravanserai, a fortress of hospitality, standing alone amidst the endless expanse of the desert. The sun has dipped far below the horizon, leaving behind a sky-stained Verkep Tihat deep indigo and violet, a vast dome that slowly turns to black. The camels, weary from the day's steady march, slow their pace even further as they enter the high-walled courtyard. The stone walls, built from thick blocks of sun-baked mud and river stone, feel cool and solid, offering a safe shield against the vast, unpredictable desert wind. Inside the courtyard, the air is thick with the comforting, grounding scents of the evening. The smoke of burning tamarisk wood, the rich aroma of roasted grains, and the sweet fume of herbal tea brewing over small embers. The travellers dismount with slow, stiff movements, their bodies aching slightly from the long hours in the saddle, but their hearts filled with a quiet sense of relief. The packers immediately turn their attention to the animals, working with a quiet, practiced tenderness. They unbuckle the heavy leather straps, carefully lifting the goatskin bags containing the precious Lapis Lazuli from the wooden pack saddles. Each bag is placed with great care onto the cool earthen floor of the stone alcoves that line the inner courtyard. There is a soft, muffled thud as the heavy pouches settle into the dirt, the rough stones, within shifting slightly against their protective bed of dried mountain grass. So the merchant runs his hand over the worn leather, checking the tight hemp knots one last time under the dim light of an oil lamp. Here, behind these thick, fortressed walls, the precious blue cargo is safe from the roaming dangers of the trade routes and the sudden, violent sandstorms that can swallow a caravan whole. The stone alcoves, darkened by decades of soot from countless traveller fires, provide a quiet sanctuary for the stones which seem to rest alongside the humans who carry them. Sitting by a low, crackling fire in the centre of the courtyard, the travellers wrap themselves tightly in their heavy, wool-cloaked chill. To keep out the deep desert, the fire burns with a soft, steady hum, the orange embers pulsing gently like a slow, glowing heartbeat. A heavy iron kettle rests on a blackened stone at the edge of the fire, its water beginning to simmer and release a rhythmic, soothing, bubbling sound. The merchant adds a handful of dried wild mint and local desert herbs to the pot, and instantly a rich, fragrant steam rises into the cool night air. The scent is deeply calming. It is earthy, sweet and clean, filling the senses with a quiet warmth that reaches deep into the chest. He pours the dark amber liquid into small clay cups, the rough pottery warm and comforting against his cold, tired fingers. Each sip is slow and deliberate, a quiet ritual that marks the end of another long day on the Silk Road. Above the high courtyard walls, the desert sky reveals itself in all its breathtaking, silent majesty. Without the dust of the day, the air is crystal clear, and millions of brilliant icy stars puncture the velvet darkness like a scattering of diamond dust. Looking up at this vast celestial canopy, one cannot help but notice tis to the raw Lapis Lazuli, resting in the dark alcoves just a few feet away. The deep, limitless blue of the night sky mirrors the colour of the stones, while the shimmering stars match the golden flecks of pyrite embedded within the rock. It is as if a small piece of this very night sky has been captured by the earth and buried deep within the mountains, only to be dug out and carried across the world by these weary travellers. The absolute silence of the desert night settles over the caravanserai, a heavy, peaceful stillness that gently cradles the men, the animals, and the sacred blue stones as they rest under the watchful gaze of the infinite stars. The journey continues as the caravan leaves the temporary shelter of the stone caravanserai behind, moving deeper into the narrow rock passes that cut through the high arid plateaus. The desert night is not merely dark, it is an active, living silence, shaped by the steady, unhurried movement of the wind. This wind, blowing across thousands of miles of open, empty earth, carries a profound, heavy cold and settle directly into the stone. Aye, it is a calm, patient force, a wind that has spent thousands of centuries smoothing the sharp edges of the granite cliffs and sculpting the vast sand seas into undulating waves. As it passes through the narrow fissures and deep canyons of the mountains, it produces a low, hollow whistle, a steady, rhythmic sigh that rises and falls like the slow breathing of the earth itself. The sound does not disrupt the quietness of the night. Rather, it deepens it, reminding the travellers of their own smallness in the face of an immense, timeless landscape. The travellers wrap their heavy wool cloaks tighter around their shoulders, pulling the coarse lanolin-scented fabric up to their noses to warm the frigid air before it reaches their lungs. Every breath they release forms a thick, white cloud that lingers for a brief moment in the dim light before being gently swept away by the current. Tiny, delicate crystals of frost begin to form along the outer fibres of the blankets, turning the dark grey wool into a silvery, glistening landscape under the stars. The leather pouches carrying the Lapis Lazuli gurr over kept stiff and cold, the leather contracting slightly around the grass-lined interior, holding the precious blue stones in a tight, unyielding embrace. There is no anger or distress in this cold. It is accepted by the men and the camels as a fundamental truth of the journey, a quiet, philosophical understanding that to carry something sweat beauty across the world, one must be willing to endure the quiet, heavy, stillest space, most solitary spaces. As you listen to the distant, rhythmic whistle of the wind in this ancient pass, let your own body find its ultimate sanctuary within the warmth of your bed. If your mind is still gently floating along these old trade routes, finding comfort in the steady pace of our journey, you might take a soft, effortless moment to check that you are subscribed to Whispers of Centuries. A quiet tap on the like button or a gentle word left burn in the comments, allowing these peaceful histories to reach other tired souls looking for rest. But tonight, your only true task is to let go. Feel the safety of your dark room. Let the weight of your limbs sink completely into the mattress, and allow my voice to carry you further into the quiet spaces of the past. The camels move forward with an astonishing mechanical regularity, their large padded feet finding traction on the frozen gravel of the mountain path. The heavy iron and bronze buckles of their harnesses are coated in a thin sheen of ice, making a faint metallic clink. Clink? With every slow step, a cold sound that cuts cleanly through the soft rush of the wind. The merchant looks at the lead animal, watching the slow rhythmic sway of its heavy neck, a motion that has remained unchanged since the dawn of human trade. In this high pass, far removed from the cities and the busy markets, the value of the Lapis Lazuli changes. It is no longer an item of wealth or commerce, but a heavy, silent companion, a fragment of the mountain being carried through the dark. The internal warmth of the travellers, preserved beneath layers of wool and leather, stands as a quiet defiance against the vast freezing emptiness of the night. They move as a slow glowing ember through a world of ice, carrying the seed of future beauty within their frozen packs. As the caravan descends from the high icy passes, it approaches a faint, invisible boundary in the desert, a place where the jagged mountains give way to the low rolling limestone hills controlled by the ancient nomadic tribes of the steppe. This is a place of profound transition, where the safety of the caravan relies not on walls or fortresses, but on the delicate, silent agreements forged between merchants and the local guardians of the road. The air here feels slightly warmer, carrying a heavy dust that settles onto the wool garments of the travellers and the coarse fur of the camels. There is an undeniable atmosphere of extreme caution, a quiet, focused stillness that takes hold of every man in the line. The merchant knows that these borderlands require a different kind of strength, not the physical endurance needed to climb the frozen summits, but an immense psychological laws of the wilderness, and a deep respect for the unwritten laws of the meeting point is located near a dry, rocky riverbed where a few ancient weather-beaten tamarisk trees have managed to claw their roots deep into the arid earth. Under the pale silver light of a waning moon, a small group of tribal horsemen waits quietly, their dark figures blending seamlessly into the shadows of the rocks. There are no loud shouts or aggressive gestures. Everything is conducted with a slow, ritualistic calmness. The horsemen sit high in their wooden saddles, their mounts breathing heavily, the warm air from their nostrils forming soft, fleeting wisps of steam in the cool night. The smell of raw horsehide, dry earth, and the sharp, smoky aroma of sheep fat lamps drifts across the space, mingling with the familiar scent of the caravan-S camels. The merchant steps forward slowly, his boots crunching softly on the loose gravel, his hands held open and empty to show his peaceful intentions. Every movement in this space is deliberate, every gesture carefully measured to maintain the fragile peace of the desert. The tribal leader dismounts with a slow fluid motion, his heavy wool coat scraping softly against the leather of his saddle. He steps into the dim circle of light cast by a small handheld lantern. The merchant approaches him, and for a moment the two men stand in absolute silence, looking into each other's eyes with a quiet mutual understanding born of a lifetime spent on these ancient trade routes. There is no need for many words. The merchant reaches into his cloak and pulls out a small, heavy silver token, a traditional sign of passage that has been honoured by these tribes for generations. The metal is cold and smooth, catching the dim lantern light for a split second before it is placed into the open palm of the tribal leader. The leader closes his fingers over the silver, feeling its familiar weight and the deep ridges carved into its surface. Then comes the moment of inspection. The merchant signals to one of his trusted packers, who gently brings forward one of the goatskin pouches containing the Lapis Lazuli. The packer sets the heavy bag onto a flat boulder with a dull, muffled thud. The merchant unties the tight hemp knots with slow, careful fingers, peeling back the thick leather to reveal the bed of dried mountain grass within. He reaches inside and pulls out a single large fragment of the raw blue stone. In the soft, flickering light of the lantern, the intense ultramarine marble colour shines out from the white marble crust, and the tiny flecks of gold pyrite glint like ancient secrets. The tribal leader bends down slightly, his weathered face rotundous, as he studies the stone. He does not touch it. He merely observes its purity, recognizing the unmistakable signature of the High Sari Sang mines. After a long, quiet pause, he gives a single, slow nod, a silent declaration that the caravan has paid its respect and may pass through his territory unharmed. The stone is gently returned to its nest of grass. The leather bag is sealed once more, and the heavy knots are tied with the same meticulous care as before. There is a profound sense of relief that washes over the caravan, a quiet loosening of the shoulders as the horsemen fade back into the darkness of the hills. This interaction, so quiet and filled with mutual restraint, is a beautiful reminder of how a shared appreciation for the earth's treasures can bring together completely different worlds in perfect harmony. As the camels resume their slow, rhythmic march into the night, let your own mind find that same sense of quiet resolution. You have navigated the hidden anxieties of the day, you have passed safely through the boundaries of your thoughts, and now you are completely free to rest under the protective, silent canopy of the deep night. The dusty trails of the overland merchant routes eventually give way to the low, flat coastlines of the eastern Mediterranean, where the dry earth ends and the vast open expanse of the sea begins. Here, at a quiet coastal harbour filled with the tall wooden masts of trading galleys. The long journey of the Lapis Lazuli undergoes its most profound change of rhythm. The dry, musk-filled scent of the camel caravans is replaced entirely by the sharp, clean tang of sea salt, the heavy aroma of wet hemp ropes, and the deep, dark smell of waterlogged cedar and oak wood. The precious goatskin bags, still tightly bound with their original mountain ropes and cradling the blue stones in their nests of dried wild grass, are carefully lifted from the pack saddles for the last time. With slow measured movements, the leather pouches into heavy, iron-bound oak chests, woolen felt, lined with thick willow. The lids are lowered with a deep, hollow thud, and heavy iron padlocks are snapped shut, securing the stones in the dark belly of a merchant ship, destined for the great ports of Europe. Let your mind float out upon these deep, rolling waters as you sink further into the gentle security of your bed. The steady, rhythmic swaying of the ship on the open sea is like a great watery cradle, moving with a patience that has no regard for the hurried hours of men. You are perfectly warm, completely protected from the damp sea air, listening only to the slow, enduring pulse of the tide. As the ship ventures further out into the open sea, away from the flickering lights of the coastal ports, a majestic solitude settles over the vessel. The night sky above is a seamless dome of deep indigo, so dark and rich that the line between the water and the heavens disappears completely. The only sound is the constant, soothing lap of the waves against the thick wooden hull, a soft, rhythmic gurgle of water rushing past the oak planks, followed by the deep, low creaking of the ship's massive timber beams as they bend with the weight of the sea. The wind fills the heavy linen sails with a soft, steady hum, a continuous sigh that drives the ship forward through the dark waters, without any sudden jolts or erratic movements. Down in the hold, surrounded by barrels of olive oil, bolts of eastern silk and sticks of fragrant spices, the oak chests containing the Lapis Lazuli rest in total stillness. The stones which began their journey in the frozen dark of an Afghan mountain now sleep in the humid vessel, moving at the mercy of the wind and the stars, moving at the mercy of the wind and the stars. The sailors on the night watch move across the deck with quiet bare feet, their skin hardened by the salt and the sun. They check the thick hemp rigging by touch alone in the dark, their hands tracing the rough, fibrous twists of the ropes with an instinct born of a lifetime at sea. Every few hours the ship's bell strikes with a low, muffled tone, a solitary sound that carries across the empty water and dissolves into the vast night. As the ship nears the northern shores of Europe, the air grows noticeably colder, and a thick, silver sea mist begins to roll across the surface of the water in the pre-dawn hours. The mist clings to the wooden railings, turning into tiny, clear drops of water that glint like starlight in the lantern light. The journey across the great sea is nearly complete, and the sacred blue stones are about to enter a world that has weightless anticipation, with a desperate, breathless anticipation. The ship slips quietly into the Venetian lagoon, its heavy wooden hull, slicing through the glassy, calm waters with a faint, rhythmic ripple. The vast openness of the Mediterranean Sea now gives way to a dense, labyrinthine world of stone and water. It is the early morning hour in Venice, and a thick silver-grey fog blankets the grand canals, softening the sharp outlines of the magnificent marble palazzos that rise directly from the water. The air here is heavy and damp, carrying a rich, complex mixture of scents. The dark, earthy smell of wet wooden pilings, covered in green moss, and the faint and sweet fragrances of exotic cloves and nutmeg wafting from the nearby state warehouses. The journey of the Lapis Lazuli across the waves has ended, and it has arrived at the beating heart of European commerce, a city built entirely on water and driven by a quiet, relentless pursuit of luxury. Let your body rest heavily into the stillness of your own room, mirroring the calm water of the lagoon. There are no more waves to navigate tonight, no more open seas. You are entirely anchored in safety, sheltered from the world outside, listening only to the slow, steady rhythm of this old Venetian morning. The merchant ship gently bumps against the thick, grease-dampened wooden pylons of the wharf. Dockworkers move through the mist like silent shadows, their footsteps muffled by the moisture on the wide stone pavements of the docks. There is no frantic rushing here. The unloading of a precious cargo is a ritual executed with absolute precision and quiet care. The heavy iron-bound oak chests are slowly raised ropes and wooden pulleys that let out a low rhythmic groan, groan, groan. As they turn, the chests are lowered onto a flat-bottomed cargo barge, which sways slightly under the immense, solid weight. As the barge slips into the narrower, quieter side canals, the sound of the open harbour fades, replaced by the soft, hypnotic slap of the water against the ancient stained foundation stones of the buildings. The destination is a secluded, stone-arched counting house belonging to the Guild of the Vendor Colorai, the specialised colour merchants of Venice. Inside this high-ceilinged room, the air is cool and still, holding the scent of old linen paper, iron gall ink, and the comforting aroma of beeswax candles burning quietly in iron sconces. The heavy oak chest is placed onto a thick walnut table, its dark surface polished to a soft sheen by generations of merchants. The colour merchant, a man dressed in a long flowing robe of dark velvet, steps forward. His movements are slow, deliberate, and entirely lacking in haste. He produces a large, heavy iron key from his belt, inserting it into the padlock of the chest. With a deep metallic click, the lock snaps open. The heavy lid is raised, releasing a faint, lingering breath of the dry Afghan mountain grass, trapped weeks ago inside the dark interior. The merchant reaches past the thick protective wool, felt, and lifts one of the rough, goatskin pouches. He unties the hemp knots with practiced, steady fingers. Peeling back the stiffened leather, he gently tips the bag, allowing a few pieces of the raw lapis lazuli to slide out onto the dark walnut table. The sound of the stones striking the wood is a solid, muffled clatter that fills the quiet room. In the soft, diffused light filtering through the small leaded glass windows, the raw stones look like fragments of a fallen sky. The unpolished blue lazurite, still lightly dusted with white marble powder, contrasts beautifully with the rich, warm tones of the Italian wood. The merchant leans close, his eyes scanning the surface of the stones, watching the tiny flecks of gold pyrite catch the dim candlelight. He knows that what rests on his table is a treasure of unparalleled purity, a substance that will soon change the face of European art. Inside the quiet sanctuary of the Venetian counting house, the colour merchant dips a long, slender goose quill into a small stoneware pot of dark oak gall ink. The scratch of the nib against the thick handmade rag paper is the only sound that punctures the deep silence of the morning, a soft rhythmic scraping that moves slowly, deliberately Groporsk. In his heavy lead gin, and secured with tarnished brass clasps, he records the arrival of the cargo. But he does not write the name Lapis Lazuli. Instead, he inks a new term that will soon echo through the long history of Western art, Ultramarine, or as it would be known in the grand Latin of the Church, Ultramarinus. It is a beautiful, descriptive phrase that translates simply to from beyond the sea. This name was not chosen by chance. It was a practical acknowledgement of the immense distance the stone had travelled, a linguistic map of its journey across the waves of the Mediterranean, to reach the shores of Italy. Come to the ears of the artists, patrons and friars who visited the merchant S shop. The word ultramarine carried a sense of profound mystery, a whisper of far-off lands, hidden mountains, and sacred origins that made the material seem less like a common earth pigment and more like a physical manifestation of the sky. Let your mind gently drift along with the slow, steady stroke of the merchant's pen, feeling the absolute unhurried peace of this ancient room. There is no need to rush through these pages of history, just as there is no need to hurry into the thoughts of tomorrow. You are perfectly safe and warm within the quiet harbour of your bed, letting the rhythmic sounds of the past lull you deeper into a state of heavy, undisturbed relaxation, completely at rest. The naming of ultramarine marked a significant shift in how colour was perceived in Europe. Before its arrival, artists relied heavily on local minerals like azurite, a copper-based blue that was dug from European mines. While azurite was beautiful when first applied, it possessed a tragic flaw. Over decades of exposure to damp church walls and smoky candle soot, it would slowly oxidize, losing its blue brilliance and turning into a dull, muddy green. Ultramarine, however, was entirely different. It was chemically stable, completely immune to the ravages of time, light and air. It was an immortal colour, a blue that would remain as vivid and deep after 500 years, as it was the moment it left the painter S-brush. The colour merchant runs his finger over the drying ink in his ledger, feeling the slight ridge where the dark liquid has soaked into the cotton fibres of the paper. Outside the leaded window, the silver morning fog begins to lift from the canal, allowing a soft, diffused light to reflect off the moving water. This light dances across the low wooden ceiling of the shop, creating a slow, shimmering pattern of watery shadows that mimics the gentle pulse of the tide. The raw stones of Lapis Lazuli sit on the table, absorbing this pale Italian light, waiting quietly in their leather pouches to be distributed to the great cathedrals and private chapels of the Western world. Narif, they are no longer stones of the mountain. They have officially become ultramarine, the sacred blue from beyond the sea. The ritual of valuation within the Venetian guild houses is a silent, almost religious ceremony performed with a gravity that treats every grain of destiny as a fragment of human destiny. The colour merchant steps away from the heavy ledger and reaches for the instrument that dictates the wealth of the grand balance scales. The grand balance scales. These scales are a masterpiece of delicate engineering, forged from darkened brass that has been rubbed with linseed oil over many decades until its surface holds a low, muted sheen that resists the damp sea air. The central pillar of the scale rises from a heavy base of black marble, supporting a slightest breath of wind that sways with the slightest breath of wind. From either end of the beam, two flat brass pans hang by fine braided silk cords of a deep crimson colour. The cords are worn and soft from years of tension, yet they hold the weight of the world's most precious substances without a single tremor. The merchant uses a small silk cloth to wipe the pans, removing any invisible speck of dust that might disrupt the absolute truth of the measurement. Let your own mind find its point of perfect balance tonight. Just like the delicate arm of the scale, allow your thoughts to settle into a state of quiet equilibrium, where the heavy demands of the day are perfectly counteracted by the soft, enveloping warmth of your bed. There is no need to measure your accomplishments or weigh your worries tonight. You can simply exist in this unhurried space, allowing your breath to rise and fall that matches the peaceful stillness of this Venetian room. Your body is entirely supported, entirely safe, resting deeply in the quiet dark. The merchant pulls open a small velvet-lined drawer beneath the walnut table, releasing the soft, woody aroma of cedar and old felt. Inside the drawer rest the official brass weights of the Republic of Venice, each one stamped with a winged lion of St. Mark. He handles these weights with small wooden tongs, never touching them with his bare fingers, as the natural oils of the skin could minutely alter their precise mass. One by one he places the small brass cylinders onto the right-hand pan of the scale, a tiny metallic clink, 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 echoing softly against the stone walls of the shop. On the left-hand pan he begins to lay the fragments of Lapis Lazuli. The contrast between the two sides of the scale is visual poetry. On one side sits the warm solar radiance of the polished metal. On the other, the cool abyssal depth of the blue stone, its golden pyrite flecks catching the amber glow of the candle. The value of the finest ultramarine during this era is absolute and uncompromising. An ounce of this pure blue stone is traded directly for an ounce of solid, pure gold wrong. As the merchant adds the final piece of lapis lazuli, the brass crossbeam lifts slowly from its resting pin, swaying lazily up and down through the misty air. The room falls into a state of suspended animation, as both men watch the tiny brass pointer at the center of the beam. It swings to the left, then gently to the right, the movements becoming smaller and smaller, more and more deliberate, until finally it comes to a complete motionless rest precisely over the central notch. The balance is perfect. The weight of the celestial blue has been perfectly equated with the weight of the earth's ultimate wealth. The merchant nods slowly, a silent confirmation that the transaction is complete. The price of beauty has been measured, not in promises, but in the heavy, unyielding reality of gold and stone. The exclusivity of ultramarine went far beyond its staggering weight in gold. It was a colour bound by sacred decrees, papal bulls, and royal monopolies that dictated its use with an ironclad rigidity. In the grand, quiet halls of the Vatican and the fortified courts of European monarchs, laws were carefully drafted on thick, heavy vellum to control who could purchase, possess, or paint with this celestial blue. To the medieval and Renaissance mind, a colour this pure, this completely resistant to the corruption of time and decay, did not belong to the ordinary world of mortal men. It was viewed as a physical reflection of divine light, a literal piece of heaven loaned to the earth. Therefore, the common folk, the weavers, the bakers, the local blacksmiths who spent their days from ever using, or even the town square, were strictly forbidden from ever using, or even if a wealthy merchant outside the nobility somehow acquired the gold to buy a single grain of the stone, the law prevented them from employing it. The distribution of ultramarine was monitored by powerful guilds and ecclesiastical authorities, ensuring that this sacred substance was reserved solely for the highest spiritual and temporal powers on earth. Let your mind rest deeply in the quiet knowledge that those rigid boundaries of the past are long gone, and that you are entirely free from any rules or expectations tonight. In the stillness of your dark room, there is no hierarchy, no demands to be met, and no heavy judgments. You are simply souls resting in the warmth of your own safe sanctuary. Allow your breathing to remain slow, rhythmic, and natural, letting the weight of your body sink effortlessly into the mattress, like a stone settling into the quiet depths of a calm, forgotten lake. The legal contracts drawn up between wealthy patrons, often popes, cardinals, or grand dukes, reveal an almost obsessive commission regarding ultramarine. In these documents, written with sharp iron gall ink that bit deep into the rough paper, the patron would explicitly state how much ultramarine must be used in the painting. The artist was rarely allowed to purchase the pigment themselves. Instead, the patron would buy the raw lapis lazuli directly from the Venetian colour merchants and deliver it to the workshop under lock and key. Every gram of the precious blue dust was weighed before the artist's eyes, and every unused particle had to be returned to the patron's treasury once the masterpiece was finished. If an artist attempted to substitute a cheaper pigment, like azurite or German blue, they faced severe fines, public disgrace, or even imprisonment. This extreme control created a visual landscape where colour was a direct indicator of spiritual and political supremacy. For the ordinary person living in the crowded alleys of Renaissance cities, their visual world was dominated by earth tones, the dull browns of untreated wool, the muted greys of charcoal-dyed linen, and the pale ochres of local clay. To step inside a grand cathedral and see a vast expanse of pure radiant ultramarine on a newly uncovered fresco was an overwhelming transcendent experience. It was designed to shock the senses, to lift the viewer out of their mundane, difficult lives, and offer them a fleeting glimpse of paradise. The common people looked upon that blue with a mixture of awe and profound distance, knowing that it represented a realm of wealth, power and divinity that they could never hope to touch. The Cocabonda, the sacred blue, remained locked away behind altar rails and heavy by the centuries, waiting in the dim, incense-scented air for the chosen few who held the keys to the world. Some wailed, leaving the silver mists of the Venetian lagoon behind. The journey of the ultramarine shifts from the gentle sway of the water to the solid, rhythmic thrum of the Italian mainland. In the deep twilight of the northern plains, a heavy iron-bound transport carriage sits waiting at the edge of the mainland post road. This carriage is built not for speed, but for absolute endurance and the security of priceless cargo. Its thick timber frame is crafted from seasoned white oak, reinforced with massive iron to strap the city's finest blacksmiths by the city's blacksmiths. Beneath the driver's high bench lies a hidden reinforced compartment, custom-fitted to hold the heavy felt-lined chests containing the precious lapis lazuli. The colour merchant himself watches as the chest is slid into the dark recess, a low scraping sound of wood against iron that signals the beginning of a long nocturnal transit across the spine of Italy toward the grand artistic hubs of Florence and Rome. As you listen to the steady imagined turning of these heavy carriage wheels, allow your own mind to settle into a comforting, repetitive rhythm. There is an exquisite peace in knowing that you are entirely still tonight, tucked away safely within the warm embrace of your blankets, while the stories of the past move softly across the landscape. Let your breath drop into a natural, slow cadence, matching the unhurried progress of the horses as they travel through the quiet night. You have no roads to travel yourself, no burdens to carry through the dark. You are perfectly secure in the quiet harbour of your room. The carriage moves forward under a vast dark sky, yet heavy methodically over the loose gravel and packed mud of the ancient post roads. The sound is deeply hypnotic, a continuous low rumble broken only by the steady rhythmic cloop, cloop, cloop of the horses' heavy hooves striking the earth. The night air across the Tuscan hills is crisp and cool, carrying the earthy scents of damp soil, wet pine needles, and the faint sweet smell of wild rosebery bruising under the wheels. Inside the carriage, the atmosphere is quiet and thick with the comforting aromas of the journey. The rich, greasy scent of lard used to lubricate the iron axles, the musky tang of damp leather harnesses, and the clean, herbal aroma of the mountain grass packed tight inside the stone pouches. The driver, wrapped in an oversized wool coat that has seen decades of winter travel, holds the leather reins loosely but firmly, his eyes adjusted to the pale, silver moonlight that illuminates the winding road ahead. There is a beautiful, solitary isolation to this midnight transit. The villages they pass are dark and completely silent, their stone cottages shut tight against the midnight chill, with only a thin wisp of grey smoke rising from a dying hearth here and there to show that life breathes within. The carriage moves like a silent ghost through these sleeping landscapes, carrying a material that will soon illuminate the world's most magnificent chapels. Each jolt of the road causes the unpolished stones within the hidden box to settle a fraction deeper into their beds of grass. A tiny muffled rustle of wealth shifting in the dark. This slow, careful movement through the night ensures that the sacred blue arrives intact, guarded by the shadows and the steady determinations of the men who guide it toward its final, glorious transformation in the studios of the great masters. We step back inside the small dark room in Rome, leaving the long roads and rolling waves behind. The heavy wooden door is barred shut against the midnight air, keeping the freezing winter wind completely outside, while the fire in the hearth has settled into a bed of deep red, pulsing embers. The only sound in the space is the slow, steady breathing of the painter and the soft, almost inaudible hiss of the melting wax from the single candle on the workbench. On the thick marble slab, the unpolished fragments of Lapis Lazuli rest beside a massive bronze mortar and a heavy iron pestle. The metal of the mortar is cool and dark, its interior worn perfectly smooth by generations of grinding that came before. The artist reaches out his hand, his rough fingers curling around a large piece of the blue stone. He feels its coldness, its weight, and the subtle dusty texture of the white limestone crust that still clings to its sides. There is a profound stillness in this moment, a quiet pause before the physical labour of transformation begins. Take a slow, deep breath, letting the absolute peace of this workshop settle into your own space tonight. Feel the heavy support of your bed, completely secure and warm. Just like does not need to struggle with ancient Rome. Your mind does not need to struggle with any tasks or solve any problems. You can simply watch the slow, rhythmic movements of the painter in the dark. Let your shoulders drop, release the tension in your hands, and allow yourself to sink deeper into the soft mattress as the story unfolds. The painter lifts the heavy iron pestle, its handle polished smooth by years of touch. He places the first piece of lapis lazuli into the deep cavity of the bronze mortar. With a slow, deliberate movement, he brings the pestle down. The first strike produces a dull, heavy thud, followed by a sharp, metallic ring that echoes softly off the stone walls. The raw stone resists for a moment, then fractures with a crisp, clean fragments. Breaking into smaller fragments, the artist does not hurry. His movements are steady and measured, repeating the action with an unhurried cadence. Lift, strike, twist, lift, strike, twist. With every blow, the sound changes, shifting from a sharp clink to a muffled grinding crunch as the stone fragments are broken down into saw. The earthy scent rises from sand. A faint, earthy scent rises from the mortar. The distinct mineral smell of ancient sulphur and crushed limestone, a scent that has been locked inside the mountain for millions of years, now released into the warm Roman air. The light of the single candle catches the fine cloud of blue dust, drifting lazily slowly through the warm air, like a tiny celestial mist. The painter leans in close, his breath slow, so as not to blow the precious powder away. He uses a small brush made of soft badger hair to sweep the particles from the sides of the mortar back into the centre. The dust is not yet the vibrant, smooth paint that will cover the chapel walls. It is a rough, gritty powder, mottled with the grey of the limestone and the glittering with metallic sparks of the gold pyrite. Under the amber glow of the candle, these tiny golden play of blue fur, before being ground over Kepner further into the dark blue field. The physical effort required to crush the stubborn stone is immense, yet the artist works with a serene, meditative focus, treating each stroke of the pestle as a form of silent devotion. His hands grow dusted with a fine silver-blue powder, the skin capturing the ancient mineral oils of the rock. This is the raw, unrefined beginning of the alchemical process, a slow rhythmic breaking down of the earth to unlock the sacred light hidden within. The painter carefully gathers the fine powder from the bottom of the bronze mortar, using a small, smooth spatula carved from animal horn. The horn is soft enough not to scratch the precious bronze, and it slips easily along the curved metal surface slide. Scrape, scrape, slide. He transfers the mound of blue-grey dust onto a flat dark slab of porphyry stone that sits on the edge of his workbench. In its dry state, the crushed lapis lazuli looks deceptively beautiful, a soft powdery azure that seems to promise the very depth of the ocean. But the old master knows the deceptive nature of this mineral. He knows that if he were to simply mix this raw powder with oil or water right now and apply it to a canvas, the result would be a tragic failure. He decides to demonstrate this ancient truth to himself once more, a quiet ritual of testing before the long purification begins. He reaches for a small dark glass vial containing cold-pressed linseed oil. The oil has been sun-bleached for months on the windowsill until it is as clear and pale as liquid honey. With a steady hand, he allows a single heavy drop of the oil to fall from the lip of the vial directly into the center of the blue powder. The drop lands with a soft, silent plop, glistening like a bead of amber in the dim candlelight. He then takes his glass muller, a heavy, flat-bottomed tool made of solid, clear glass that fits perfectly into the palm of his hand. He presses the muller down onto the oil and powder and begins to move it in slow, deliberate, circular motions. The sound that rises from the porphyry slab is a soft, wet, gritty scraping, a rhythmic, soothing noise that feels like the gentle grinding of small pebbles on a distant beach under the pull of a quiet tide. As the glass muller crushes the oil and stone together, a strange and disappointing transformation occurs. The vibrant blue colour that seemed so bright in the dry powder suddenly begins to fade away, swallowed up by a dull, muddy shade of slate grey. Within moments, the mixture on the slab looks completely lifeless, resembling ordinary wet clay or the gold ash left behind in a dying hearth. This is the great heartbreak of raw lapis lazuli, a geological riddle that frustrated the earliest colour makers for centuries. When the stone is crushed, the pure blue lazurite crystals are mixed with the soft white calcite and the dull grey silicates that formed alongside them in the mountain. When dry, the light reflects off the edges of the crystals, making it appear blue. But the moment the translucent linseed oil coats the particles, it changes how the light passes through them, revealing the overwhelming presence of the grey and white impurities. The beautiful celestial blue is completely smothered, locked away inside a dark, unappealing paste. The painter does not sigh, nor does he show any sign of frustration. He lifts the glass muller, looking at the dull grey paste sticking to its flat bottom under the weak glow of the candle. He knows that true beauty is never obtained easily, and that the most precious things in this world are often hidden beneath layers of ordinary, unglamorous reality. This disappointing grey paste is not a failure. It is simply the necessary starting point of a deeper journey. It is a physical reminder that to unlock the sacred light of the ultramarine, one must look beyond the laborious process of separation and refinement, of separation. And let your own mind find comfort in this quiet, philosophical patience tonight. Just as the artist accepts the dull grey state of his work without anxiety, you too can accept the quiet, unfinished spaces of your day. You are perfectly safe in the dark, resting your body against the soft sheets, allowing your breath to remain slow and steady as we prepare for the secret alchemical steps that will soon bring the true blue back to light. To rescue the vibrant celestial blue from its muddy slate-grey tea tomb, the painter must turn away from ordinary oils and employ a closely guarded secret, an alchemical recipe passed down through the centuries from master to apprentice, within the quiet walls of the artist guilds. This method does not rely on a single element, but on a precise harmonious blend of harvested from the natural world. Beeswax, pine resin and mastic. Gum. Beeswax. On the corner of his workbench, the artist lays out these raw materials, each holding its own unique texture and story. First is the pure beeswax, gathered from the sun-drenched hillsides outside Rome. It is a solid, pale yellow block, its surface soft and smooth to the touch, retaining a faint, sweet aroma of wild summer flowers and old honeycombs. Beside it sits a small clay jar, filled with liquid pine resin, a thick, sticky amber conifers, scraped from the trunks of old conifers, smelling sharply of the deep forest. Finally, he opens a tiny linen pouch, small, brittle, translucent crystals harvested from the bark of mastic trees, on the faraway island of Chioses. These crystals are hard and glass-like, catching the dim candlelight like tiny drops of frozen dew. Let your body absorb the absolute stillness of this moment, allowing your limbs to sink deeper and deeper into the quiet safety of your bed. Just as the artist prepares his ingredients with a slow, deliberate focus, you can allow your mind you is dark, warm, and perfectly secure. There is nothing you need to accomplish, nowhere else you need to be. Just listen to the steady, unhurried rhythm of the past unfolding in the quiet spaces of the night. The painter places a small, unglazed earthenware pot directly onto a bed of glowing red embers at the edge of the hearth. The heat is gentle, a soft warmth that will not burn the delicate ingredients. He drops the block of beeswax into the pot, and the transformation begins immediately. The solid wax begins to soften, its hard edges rounding out as it slowly slumps into a pool of golden, translucent liquid. The scent that rises from the pot is deeply comforting, a rich, warm sweetness that fills the cool air of the workshop, masking the sharp mineral smell of the crushed stone. Next, he adds the thick pine resin and the brittle tears of mastic gum. As the heat intensifies, the hard crystals of mastic begin to dissolve, melting into the wax and resin, binding them together at a molecular level. The artist uses a smooth stick carved from aged pearwood to stir the mixture, moving it in slow, lazy circles. The sound is a faint, rhythmic scraping of wood against clay, a low, soothing hum that accompanies the swirling golden liquid. The three distinct elements are now completely unified, creating a thick, sticky and aromatic medium known as the pastigue. He lifts the earthenware pot from the embers, using a thick wool cloth to protect his fingers from the heat. With a steady, practiced hand, he pours the hot, liquid wax mixture directly onto the porphyry stone slab, where the dry, blue-grey lapis lazuli powder waits. The golden liquid washes over the stone dust, immediately darkening it, turning the powder into a thick tar-like mass. Before the mixture cools and hardens, the artist must begin the physical process of kneading. He waits until the temperature is just right, warm enough to remain pliable, but cool enough not to blister his skin. Using his bare hands, he gathers the sticky mass from the slab, rolling it and pressing it with the heels of his palms. The texture is heavy, dense, and incredibly tacky, pulling against the skin of his hands with a rhythmic, quiet suction. He kneads the dough over and over, folding it upon itself in the dark, ensuring that every single grain of the crushed lapis lazuli is completely encased within the sticky web of wax and resin. Within an hour, the mixture transforms into a smooth, dark, rubbery ball, a dense mass that looks like a midnight blue stone itself. This ball of wax will hold the precious blue crystals safely within its grip, waiting but will separate the sacred ultramarine from the useless grey dust. The dark rubbery ball of wax and stone resin now rests quietly on the porphyry slab, but its journey inside the small candlelit workshop is far from over. In fact, it is about to enter a period of prolonged, meditative stillness and repetitive motion that will sometimes for many days, and sometimes even weeks. The master painter looks down at the dense, midnight blue mass. It has cooled completely now, taking on a hard, unyielding quality that feels like a polished stone pulled from a frozen river. To make it pliable again, the artist does not place it back over the hot embers of the fire. Instead, he relies entirely on the natural, steady warmth of his own hands. He picks up the heavy ball, cupping it within his palms, and begins to squeeze. At first, the dough resists his fingers, stubborn and cold, but as his body heat slowly transfers into the wax, the pastille begins to soften, yielding to the pressure with a slow, reluctant grace. Let your own muscles mimic this deep, total relaxation. Imagine letting go of all the tightness held within your shoulders, your neck, and your hands. Just as the wax softens under a gentle, steady warmth, you can let the tension of your day dissolve into the comforting embrace of your bed. There is no need to stretch or sore strain tonight. You are completely at rest, safely wrapped in the dark, quiet sanctuary of your room. The process of kneading this resinous dough is an exercise in pure, unhurried rhythm. Hour after hour, under the dim, unwavering glow of a single beeswax candle, the artist works in absolute silence. The only sound in the room is the faint, sticky sigh of the wax as it is pressed against the stone slab, folded over, and pressed down again. A soft, rhythmic pull and release as the air is squeezed out of the dense mass. The smell that fills the space is intensely comforting and grounding. It is the rich, sweet aroma of the beeswax, mingling with the sharp, woody scent of the pine resin, warmed continuously by the friction of human skin. The artist stretches the dough out into a long, thick ribbon, watching how the light catches the tiny, microscopic glints of pyrite, still trapped within the dark blue matrix. Then he folds it back upon itself, sealing the minerals back into the center of the ball. This repetitive motion becomes a form of silent meditation, a dance of patience where time loses all its modern meaning. Days bleed into nights, and nights into days, while the artist continues this quiet labor in the corner of his workshop. He knows that the thoroughness of this kneading will dictate the ultimate purity of the blue that eventually emerges. There are no shortcuts in this craft. There are no shortcuts up his candle. If he tries to rush the process, the impurities will remain tangled in the laserite, ruining the brilliance of the final paint. Every muscle in his forearms moves with a steady automatic cadence, a devotion to the slow craft that has remained unchanged for centuries. The stone must be completely familiarized with the wax, every single grain embraced by the resin, preparing the entire mass for that miraculous separation of the water that will soon take place under the water. After days of patient kneading, the dark resinous ball of wax is finally ready for the miraculous stage of its transformation, the ritual of the water, the ritual of the water wash. The painter clears his workbench, leaving only a large, deep bowl made of white glazed earthenware. The glaze is smooth and cool, reflect faint amber glow of the candle flame, like a still puddle of water under a setting sun. He fills the basin with pure water that has been gently warmed over the hearth embers. The temperature must be precise. Not hot enough to melt the wax dough, but warm enough to keep it soft and loose. To the water, he adds a few drops of a very mild alkaline solution, made by soaking clean wood ash in rainwater. This simple addition alters the surface tension of the liquid, allowing the water to slide smoothly into the microscopic pores of the wax mass. Let your thoughts drift down into the calm, clear water of this basin, feeling your body grow completely heavy and still against your mattress. There are no waves or disturbances in this quiet pool, just as there are no demands on your mind tonight. You are safe, perfectly warm, and entirely insulated from the rush of the world outside. Allow your breathing to slow down, matching the gentle rhythmic ripples of the water as the artist begins his work. The painter lifts the heavy ball of midnight blue wax and slowly lowers it into the warm water. There is a soft, gentle splash, followed by a rhythmic liquid gurgle as the water flows around the dense mass. He submerges his bare hands into the basin, feeling the enveloping warmth of the liquid against his skin. Beneath the surface, he begins to gently massage and manipulate the ball of dough with a slow hypnotic regularity. Squeeze, pressing, turn, squeeze. Squeeze, release, turn, squeeze, release, turn. For the first few minutes, nothing seems to change. The water remains clear, and the wax ball holds its dark shape. But then, a subtle miracle begins to unfold in the quiet dark of the workshop. From the microscopic cracks of the kneaded wax, a faint cloud of the most intense, vibrant blue begins to emerge. It rises into the clear water like a wisp of coloured smoke, twisting and curling lazily in the warm current. This is the pure lazurite crystal, the true heart of the Lapis Lazuli. Because of the unique chemistry of the alchemical mixture, the sticky hold on to the dull grey silicates and heavy white calcite impurities, keeping them trapped inside the ball. Sewn, waste, but the pure, smooth blue particles have a natural affinity for the water. They slip free from the resinous grip, floating out into the basin. Within moments, the clear water transforms into a swirling deep blue ocean, an enclosed sky of liquid ultramarine. The artist continues the slow, underwater massage for hours, his hands moving with an unhurried, rhythmic cadence that creates a soothing, rhythmic sloshing sound against the ceramic sides of the bowl. Splash, slide, splash. The blue cloud becomes thicker and denser, hiding his hands opaque, hiding his hands from view. As the liquid begins to cool, the tiny heavy particles of pure blue pigment slowly lose their buoyancy. They begin to drift downward through the dark blue current, settling quietly at the bottom of the basin. They form a smooth velvet layer of celestial silt, a perfect undisturbed carpet of the most beautiful blue the world has ever seen. The artist stops his movement, slowly lifting his dripping hands and the spent ball of wax from the water, leaving the liquid to settle in absolute silence through the remainder of the night. The morning light that enters the workshop through the small, leaded glass panes is soft and grey, filtering through the lingering mist of the Roman winter. On the workbench, the white earthenware bowl sits in absolute stillness, untouched for hours. The liquid inside has become completely clear again, as clear as a mountain stream, because every single particle of the pure ultramarine has settled to the bottom. The artist approaches the table with a slow, deliberate step, his movements careful not to cause even the slightest vibration that might disturb the precious sediment below. Sheen-Corey. With a steady hand, he lifts the bowl and begins the process of decanting, tilting the ceramic rim to allow the clear spent water to pour off into a secondary jar. The sound is a quiet, steady trickle, a gentle liquid murmur that slowly feeds into a faint drip, drip, drip as the last of the moisture slides away. Left behind at the bottom of the basin is a thick, wet layer of deep blue sludge, a substance so rich in the very light of coloured that it seems to absorb the very light of the room. The artist uses a wide, flat scraper made of polished horn to gather this blue silt, pushing the material into small, neat mounds that look like miniature mountain peaks made of solid sky. He spreads this verre-capitaire paste carefully across several flat sheets of unglazed, porous pottery tiles. The unglazed ceramic is dry and thirsty, immediately beginning to draw the remaining moisture out of the blue sludge. The sound of the scraper moving across the tile is a soft, wet hiss, a rhythmic, soothing whisper that marks the final stage of physical transformation. As you picture the slow, quiet drying of this sacred blue, let your own mind find a state of absolute, peaceful stillness. There is nothing more for you to process tonight, no more movements to make. You are perfectly warm, completely sheltered from the cold winter wind, entirely wrapped in the comfort of your bed. Allow your breath to slow to deep, natural rhythm, letting your limbs feel heavy and relaxed against the sheets. Over the next few hours, as the moisture evaporates into the still air of the workshop, the wet paste begins to lose its shine, turning from a glossy liquid into a matte, solid crust. Tiny cracks begin to form across the surface of the drying blue field, like the dried bed of a desert river, until the material fractures into brittle, chalky cakes. The artist takes a small wooden mallet and gently taps these loose powder that slips through his fingers like dry silk. This is the finished Ultramarine silk co. Making a pigment of hat, staggering purity and brilliance that it seems almost luminescent in the dim light. He pours the precious powder into a small clear glass vial, securing it with a soft cork stopper. As the container is set onto the shelf, it catches the faint light of the dying fire, glowing like a small captive fragment of the cosmos, ready at last to be mixed with the master's binder and breathe eternal life into the grand frescoes of the chapel. The small glass vial, holding the pure luminescent powder of ultramarine, is cradled gently in the painter one hand as he the quiet warmth of his workshop behind. He walks through the narrow, cobbled alleys of Rome in the dim hours before the dawn, when the city is still wrapped in a deep, undisturbed sleep. His destination is the Grand Chapel, a towering structure of ancient stone whose high vaults reach toward the heavens. Entering through the heavy iron-studded oak doors, the atmosphere changes instantly. The air inside is cool still and carries a rich, sacred mixture of scents. The faint, lingering perfume of burnt frankincense, the clean smell of old beeswax, and the damp, earthy aroma of freshly laid lime plaster. The vast silence of the sacred space is absolute, an empty vessel waiting quietly to be filled with light and celestial colour. Let your own mind settle into that same vast, undisturbed quiet tonight. Allow your body to feel completely still, anchored in the safe, warm sanctuary of your bed. There are no movements you need to make, no lingering thoughts you need to follow. Just let the slow, rhythmic cadence of the past guide you deeper into a state of heavy, peaceful rest. You are perfectly secure, protected from the rush of the world, as the night cradles you in its soft, dark embrace. The artist begins his slow ascent up the massive wooden scaffolding, his boots making a faint, hollow creak against the thick pine planks with every deliberate step. Up near the highest vaults of the ceiling, the floor below disappears into the deep shadows, and he is left alone in the small enclosed world of his workspace. Before him sits the dry plaster wall, a vast canvas of pale grey stone. On his handheld wooden pallet, he prepares the binder, a clear, pure glare made from whipped egg whites, using a small bone knife to smooth it out until it is perfectly consistent. Then, with a reverence that feels like a silent prayer, He removes the cork stopper from the glass vial and allows a small mound of the brilliant blue powder to slide onto the wood. The contrast is breathtaking, the deep, abyssal ultramarine sitting beside the pale, translucent binder. He takes his brush, made from the finest, softest Miniver fur, and begins to work the stone and the glaze together. The sound is a mere whisper, a soft, wet sliding of bristles against the palette, as the dry sky of the mountain dissolves into the fluid medium of the paint. With every circular stroke, the colour deepens, turning into a rich, velvety cream, and turning into a rich, velvety cream, a blue so intense and pure that it seems to radiate its own internal light under the flickering glow of his solitary candle, the raw Lapis Lazuli. Having survived the mountain fires, the desert sands, the ocean waves, and the alchemical fires of the workshop, is finally ready to touch the sacred wall and breathe its eternal, immortal life into the grand image of the heavens. The painter raises his hand. The soft Miniver brush laden with the velvety deep ultramarine paint, and holds it suspended for a heartbeat just inches from the wall. The silence at the top of the scaffolding is so profound that he can hear the rhythmic, distant thrum of his own pulse. A single candle, stuck to a wooden crossbeam with a dollop of melted wax, flickers gently as a stray draught passes through the high vault, casting long, dancing shadows across the pale expanse of the plaster. He leans forward slightly, his eyes fixed on the outline he had traced in charcoal days before, the flowing, elegant curves that will become the mantle of the Madonna, the Queen of Heaven. With a breath held still, he brings the wet bristles into contact with the wall. But the first stroke is a revelation. The brush moves with a smooth, unbroken, fluid grace, making a faint wet whisper against the stone. Slide, sweep, slide. The plaster, still holding a ghost of its original lime moisture, drinks the paint hungrily, pulling the pure lazurite crystals deep into its very grain. The colour that left the palette as a wet cream instantly settles into a matte, breathtaking depth on the wall, that it defies the shadows of the dark chapel, that it defies the shadows of the dark pond. It does not look like paint applied to a surface. It looks like a tear in the fabric of the building itself, a small window opened directly into the infinite night sky of the cosmos. As you picture that smooth, heavy brush tracing its path across the ancient stone, let your own body experience that same sense of effortless, flowing peace. Feel the mattress beneath you completely absorb your weight, as if you too are settling into an eternal, unchanging foundation of comfort and safety. There is no friction in your thoughts tonight, no resistance in your body, just a slow, gentle letting go, like ink dissolving into water, or a deep blue stroke vanishing into the quiet dark. Your breathing is slow, steady, and light, carrying you deeper into the soft folds of the night. Stroke after stroke, the artist builds the sacred garment layer upon layer. His movements are automatic, repetitive, and deeply serene. He dips the brush into the egg glare pool, sweeps it through the blue powder, and carries it back to the stone. The smell of the whipped egg white, sharp and clean, mixes with the cold mineral scent of the wall, creating an aroma that belongs uniquely to the birth of a masterpiece. Under his hand, the pale grey ceiling is systematically conquered by the blue from beyond the sea. The golden flecks of pyrite, though ground into near microscopic dust, still manage to catch the candlelight from certain angles, creating a faint celestial shimmer within the paint, as if the stars themselves are slowly waking up across the plaster sky. The stone from the high forgotten mines of Badakhshan has finally found its resting place, transformed into a vision of divinity that will stand unshaken, silent and beautiful, for centuries to come. The rich, velvety ocean of ultramarine continues to expand across the high curved vault of the Roman chapel, moving steadily over the unblemished surface of the fresh lime plaster. The painter moves his miniver brush with a slow, almost hypnotic deliberation, each stroke a testament to a lifetime of discipline and quiet devotion. The egg glare creates a soft sliding resistance against the gritty texture of the ground stone, making a faint whisper that echoes off the cold walls far below. Slide, sweep, absorb. The plaster is art mort its perfect readiness, neither too wet to dissolve the pigment nor too dry to reject it. It drinks the deep blue liquid hungrily, drawing the pure lazurite crystals into its porous matrix, locking them into an eternal chemical embrace that will withstand the humidity, dust, and the slow passage of centuries. As the brush applies layer after layer, the translucent binder allows the light from the solid blue candles and reflect plaster underneath, and reflect off the white plaster underneath, giving the painted fabric an internal shimmering radiance that looks alive. As you envision the slow, heavy expansion of this celestial blue across the stone ceiling, allow your own awareness to mirror this profound, unhurried peace. Let your body sink effortlessly into the deep, welcoming comfort of your mattress, feeling the heavy, solid support beneath you, just as the ancient plaster walls of the chapel stand unshaken against the winter wind outside. Your room is a perfect sanctuary of safety, warmth, and absolute stillness. There are no tasks left to complete, no thoughts that require your attention, and no hurried schedules to keep. You are completely permitted to let go of the day's weight, allowing your muscles to soften and your mind to drift like floating in a calm, still room. Breathe in deeply, feeling the cool, clean air fill your chest, and exhale slowly, releasing any remaining tension into the quiet darkness around you. You are safe, you are protected, and you are entirely at rest. The candle on the wooden scaffolding crossbeam has burned down significantly, its flame pulsing gently like a slow, glowing heartbeat in the vast emptiness of the cathedral vault. A pool of molten wax has formed at its base, sending a silent, heavy tear down the rough grain of the pine plank. The amber light casts a warm, soft glow over the painted surface, revealing the intricate, subtle textures of the masteress' handiwork. From this close vantage point, the blue mantle of the Madonna is not a flat shape, but a complex topography of shadow and light. The tiny fragments of gold pyrite catch the flickering light at precise angles, twinkling like distant icy stars embedded within a velvet night. The deep ultramarine colour absorbs the shadows around it, creating an optical illusion of immense depth. The solid stone of the ceiling seems to dissolve entirely, replaced by an open, infinite window that looks directly out into the heart of the cosmos. The physical rhythm of the work has become entirely automatic for the artist, a silent conversation between his hand and the stone. He dips the fine brush back into his palette, sweeping it through the velvety cream of the paint with a practiced twist. The soft, wet clatter of the brush against the wood is the only sound in the Hattie-Go-Hat vault, a predictable marker of time in a place where hours have ceased to matter. Outside the heavy doors, the Roman night is freezing and still, but up here, isolated on the high platform, the atmosphere remains thick with the grounding aromas of creation, the clean scent of egg whites, the mineral dust of crushed limestone, and the earthy smell of wool. His arm moves with an unhurried grace, tracing the elegant folds of the sacred drapery, ensuring that every grain of the precious ultramare is placed ve kepte hat absolute precision. The silence within the cathedral deepens as the final hours of the Roman night stretch toward dawn. The master painter guides his eto-epte brush through the very last curves of the sacred drapery, his movements slowing to a near motionless crawl, Each touch of the bristles is now incredibly light, a feather-soft whisper that gently blends the transitions between the deep shadows and the illuminated Samsuni surfaces of the blue robe. Touch, glide, glide, rest. The paint on the palette has dwindled to a tiny pool, but it is exactly enough to complete the work. The fresh lime plaster has absorbed the ultramarine crystals so perfectly that the wall no longer feels like cold stone. It has transformed into a living membrane of radiant colour. The chemistry of the wall is changing silently in the dark, the lime combining with the air to form a clear crystalline crust that will lock the blue lazurite inside its structure forever, safeguarding its brilliance against the slow touch of the centuries. Let your own breathing drop into this same state of profound, undisturbed finality tonight. Allow your body to sink fully into the soft depths of your bed, feeling completely anchored in the security of your dark room. Just as the painter finishes his long labour and prepares to rest, you are entirely permitted to lay down the burdens of your thoughts and your uncompleted tasks. The world outside your window is quiet, motionless, and wrapped in a protective velvet darkness that demands nothing from you. You do not need to track the passing minutes or anticipate the coming morning. You can simply exist in this quiet, warm space, letting each slow, deep breath carry you further away from the noise of the day. Your limbs are heavy, your mind is beautifully clear, and you are perfectly safe, cradled by the gentle, rhythmic stillness of the deep night. The candle on the wooden scaffolding crossbeam has burned down significantly, its flame pulsing gently like a slow, glowing heartbeat in the vast emptiness of the cathedral vault. A pool of molten wax has formed at its base, sending a silent, heavy tear down the rough grain of the pine plank. The amber light casts a warm, soft glow over the painted surface, revealing the intricate, subtle textures of the Master-S handiwork. From this close vantage point, the blue mantle of the Madonna is not a flat shape, but a complex topography of shadow and light. The tiny flecks of gold pyrite catch the silver rays, glinting like stars waking up in a newly created heaven. The cathedral below remains a dark cavern of silence, holding its breath as if paying homage to the immortal beauty anchored to its ancient stone. The painter lowers his hand, placing the spent brush onto the timber of the scaffolding bench. He steps back slowly, his boots making no sound against the pine planks, and rests his back against the solid brick of the supporting pillar. A profound, exhausted peace washes over him as he looks upon the finished mantle of the Madonna. The long, arduous journey of the stone is finally complete. The rock broken by fire in the frozen dark of the Badakhshan mountains. The pouches that crossed the burning sands on the backs of slow camels. The chests that tossed upon the waves of the Mediterranean. And the mass of wax that was needed for days in the quiet workshop. All of it has converged into this single motionless point of eternal art. The stone is no longer an object of the earth. It has been completely transformed into a permanent testament to human devotion and natural wonder. The master closes his eyes in the cool, silent air, letting the rhythmic memory of the journey lull him into a state of the immortal blue. Under the protective canopy of the dawn breaks over Rome, sending pale golden shafts of sunlight through the high windows of the cathedral. The silver mists of the night slowly melt away, exposing the grand architecture to the waking world. Down below, the heavy oak doors groan on their ancient iron hinges as they are thrown open for the morning mass. Footsteps echo softly across the marble floor. The quiet shuffle of friars, the light patter of acolytes, and the hesitant steps of visitors. They all look upward, drawn by an invisible magnetic pull toward the heart vault of the ceiling, and there, illuminated by the natural warmth of the rising sun, the deep ocean of ultramarine reveals its full, majestic power. The mantle of the Madonna stands out against the stone architecture like a magnificent living jewel, a blue so intensely deep and pure that it seems to vibrate with its own light, silencing the whispers of the crowd below before they can even form. As the world below begins its slow, daily rhythm of movement and life, allow your own mind to stay completely anchored in the timeless stillness of your bed. You do not need to wake with the morning or follow the rising sun today. Your only task is to remain suspended in this beautiful, unhurried peace. Let your body feel extraordinarily heavy, melting into the soft, warm support of your blankets, completely insulated from the demands of the waking world, just as the sacred blue on the ceiling remains entirely unaffected by the noise and movement of the cathedral floor. You can let the thoughts of tomorrow slide away, leaving you perfectly safe and undisturbed in the quiet sanctuary of your dark room. Breathe in the deep, restful comfort of the night, feeling your chest rise and fall in a slow, natural cadence that knows absolutely no rush. You are completely protected, entirely at rest, and floating in a sea of absolute serenity. Years begin to bleed seamlessly into decades, and decades into centuries, while the deep blue fresco remains frozen in its magnificent eternal stillness. Generations of people pass beneath the high vaults, kings and peasants, artists and popes, all looking up, pot-mot for the same celestial sky with the same breathless awe. The cathedral around it undergoes the slow, inevitable decay of time. The air inside becomes thick with the heavy soot of 1,000,000 burning beeswax candles and the fragrant resinous smoke of swinging thuribles. This residue settles over the walls, coating the other pigments in a dull shroud. The azurites on nearby frescoes begin to oxidize, turning into a muddy green. The bright reds fade and the pale clays grow dim, but the ultramarine, born from the deep fires of the Afghan mountains and purified through alchemical saps, stands entirely immune to the corruption of the world. The soot clings to its surface, yet beneath the dust, the pure lazurite stable and untarnished, as the moment they left the painter S-brush. It is an immortal colour, a literal piece of heaven trapped on a human wall. In the quiet hours of the modern centuries, when the great cathedral is emptied of its crowds and the heavy doors are locked tight for the night, a profound sacred solitude returns to the high vault. The pale moonlight replaces the sun, casting a cool silver glow over the Madonna-esque robe. From the deep shadows of the ceiling, the tiny, microscopic sparks of gold pyrite continue to catch the dim light, twinkling softly like forgotten constellations in a quiet cosmos. The stone that began its journey in the frozen dark of a mountain halfway across the earth has outlived the empire that bought it, and the patrons who locked it away. It has become a permanent bridge of the earth and the infinite expanse of the human's spirit, resting in the dark, waiting for the next dawn, but completely untouched by time. Because we move forward across the vast rolling river of time, leaving the Renaissance behind, and arrive in the quiet calm of the modern era. The ancient cathedral still stands, but it is now the middle of the night in a bustling modern city that has grown around its thick stone walls. Outside, the distant muffled hum of electric traffic and the soft glow of neon streetlights fade into complete insulated silence inside the sacred space. A modern art conservator, having spent weeks carefully removing centuries of candle soot and yellowed varnish with delicate cotton swabs, turns off the soft working lamps. The click of the switch echoes quietly through the empty nave, plunging the gallery into a peaceful, dim stillness. The modern world fades away entirely, leaving only the timeless masterpiece glowing under the faint, natural light of the moon. The long centuries of grime have been washed away, exposing the pristine, uncorrupted brilliance of the sacred ultramarine beneath. Let your own consciousness bridge this gap between the ancient past and your absolute present moment. Bring your awareness fully into the serene, unchanging sanctuary of your own room tonight. There are no historical roads left to travel, no pigments to grind, and no masterpieces to finish. Every story has settled into its perfect resting place. Just as your body is now completely settling into the soft, comforting embrace of your bed, feel the heavy, supportive pull of gravity drawing you down into a state of total, unburdened relaxation. Your room is dark, warm, and perfectly safe, a quiet hub of the speed and noise of the modern world outside. Allow your breath to drop into its most natural, effortless rhythm, an unhurried, peaceful tide that flows in and out, soothing your mind and releasing the last remnants of tension from your muscles. You are entirely free to rest, completely protected by the quiet dark. You have absolutely nothing to achieve or think about. Just let go. Under the soft silver moonlight, filtering through the high glass windows, the ultramarine mantle of the Madonna looks exactly as it did 500 years ago. The modern cleaning has revealed its true, uncorrupted brilliance, a colour so deep and pure it seems to exist outside of time itself. The microscopic flecks of gold pyrite still catch the faint moonbeams, casting a subtle, cosmic shimmer across the matte blue surface. It is a profound reminder that true beauty, once brought to light through patience and devotion, remains untouched by the chaos of the passing centuries. The blue sits in the dark, silent and immortal, a physical piece of the infinite cosmos, anchoring the chapel to the heavens. It has survived the collapse of empires and the countless generations of eyes that have gazed upon it, remaining completely pure, completely unyielding to decay. Let this deep, eternal blue expand in your mind's eye, transforming into a soft, protective blanket of colour that wraps around your thoughts. Imagine yourself floating gently within this calm, velvety ocean of indigo, where there are no waves, no winds, and no worries. The space around you is entirely still, holding you in a state of suspended animation and absolute peace. Your eyelids feel heavy, beautifully weighted by the comfort of the night. Your thoughts are dissolving into the dark blue field, becoming softer, slower, and fainter with every passing breath. You are stepping away from the waking world now, entering the deep, undisturbed waters of a perfect sleep, completely at rest, enveloped by the immortal blue. The vast, quiet gallery of the modern museum settles into its final, deepest layer of nocturnal stillness. The moonlight that streams through the high frosted glass panels shifts slowly, its cool, pale silver beams tracing a quiet path across the polished concrete floor. Everything is completely motionless. The security monitors blink rhythmically in the distant control room, their tiny green lights pulsing like artificial fireflies in the dark, but here, in the presence of the ancient wall, time has entirely suspended its march. The ultramarine on the canvas eyes tonight. A quiet, ancient frequency humming in the velvety dark. In the velvety dark, the pure lazurite crystals, having travelled thousands of miles and survived hundreds of winters, have achieved their ultimate purpose. They are completely at rest, safely preserved in an environment of absolute, unchanging security. As you watch this ultimate peaceful resolution of the Stone-S long journey, allow your own story to find its perfect, quiet conclusion for the night. Let your body release the last, microscopic fractions of tension that may be hiding within your muscles. Feel your limbs grow profoundly heavy, as if they are crafted from the same deep, ancient stone that rested for millions of years beneath the frozen mountains. Your head sinks softly into the pillow, cradled by a perfect supportive warmth that completely insulates you from the world outside. There are no more roads to travel, no more questions to answer, and no more horizons to seek. You have arrived at the destination of this night. A place of absolute safety, total protection, and complete unhurried rest. Allow your mind to drift from the waking world, letting the thoughts of the past and the expectations of tomorrow dissolve entirely into the dark, velvety expanse of the present moment. The colour blue has always belonged to the spaces where human words begin to fail. It is the colour of the deep bottomless ocean trenches where the sun's light never reaches, and it is sun's nor reaches that stretches out far beyond the stars. Far beyond the stars. When you close your eyes tonight, let that same infinite comforting blue expand within your inner awareness, turning into a vast protective shield that guards your sleep. There is no emptiness in this darkness. It is a rich, comforting and nurturing space that cradles your consciousness, allowing your thoughts to become slower, fainter, and beautifully soft. Like a single drop of ink dissolving effortlessly into a vast pool of clear water, your worries are completely fading away, leaving behind only a deep, unbroken state of pure tranquility. Your breathing is incredibly slow, a gentle, rhythmic whisper that matches the quiet pulse of the sleeping city outside. Let yourself sink deeper and deeper into the quiet currents of this midnight ocean. Feel the soft sheets wrapped around you like a protective mantle, keeping you perfectly warm and entirely secure within the sanctuary of your room. The long journey of the Lapis Lazuli is finished, and your own daily journey has reached its beautiful, natural resting point. You are completely permitted to surrender to the heavy, welcoming pull of sleep now, letting go of the edge of the waking world and drifting into the deep, undisturbed waters of a perfect night's rest. The cosmos is quiet, the room is still, and you are enveloped in the immortal peace of the blue. Sleep now, deeply, peacefully, completely at rest. The physical world has dissolved completely, leaving behind only the vast expanse of a dreamless space. The ancient cathedral, the modern gallery, and the bustling streets outside have all receded into the deepest background of your fading like mist under the warmth of a morning sun. The ultramarine mantle is no longer just pigment on stone. It has expanded to become the very night sky that arches over your sleep. This colour, requiring millions of years to form in the frozen darkness and months of devotion to unlock, serves as your canopy of peace. The pure lazurite crystals are silent, resting in their eternal stillness, completely unbothered by the passage of time or the turning of the earth. The universe has slowed its frantic pace, dropping its demands to join you in this sacred moment of absolute quiet. The deep indigo light absorbs the last echoes of the day, neutralizing every worry and leaving only an infinite void of pure tranquility. Let your physical form surrender entirely to this heavy, comforting embrace of gravity. Feel the solid mattress beneath you as a protective foundation, an unyielding harbour that holds you with complete safety and unconditional warmth. Your shoulders have dropped completely, releasing the very last grains of tension they carried through the long hours of the day. Your hands are soft open and completely relaxed, resting effortlessly against the smooth, clean fabric of the sheets. The muscles in your face, your jaw, and around your eyes have softened into a state of total, blissful neutrality. Your eyelids feel delightfully heavy, sealed shut by the gentle, numbing weight of a deep and natural exhaustion. There is no need to move a single muscle, no need to think a single structured thought. You are completely permitted to just slide further down into the velvet folds of that mattress allowing yourself to be carried away by the slow hypnotic tide of your own breathing. In and out, a perfect, unhurried rhythm that mimics the quiet, ancient pulse of the turning world. As you drift closer to the edge of deep sleep, the sensory memories of the long journey across time begin to transform into soft, fleeting fragments of a dream. The sharp, icy bite of the mountain wind in Badakhshan becomes a cool, refreshing draft that gently brushes fresh and calm, keeping your room perfectly fresh and calm. The rhythmic, distant chime of the camel bells on the Silk Road shifts into the slow, steady thrum of your own resting heartbeat, the gentle, hypnotic rocking of the Venetian galley on the open sea merges with the soft rise and fall of your chest as you breathe. Even the warm, sweet aroma of the beeswax and pine resin from the quiet Roman workshop lingers as a comforting, grounding presence in the air around you, wrapping you in a sense of timeless familiarity and home. These elements are no longer stories or historical facts. They have become gentle, soothing ripples on the surface of your mind, guiding you step by step away from the waking world and into the deep, quiet waters of sleep. The light has gone out completely, and the world is beautifully, perfectly still. You are tucked away safely in the core of the night, entirely insulated from the speed, the noise, and the chaos of the modern universe. There is nothing left to analyze, nothing left to remember, and nothing left to anticipate. You have reached the perfect equilibrium, the ultimate point of balance where the Earth's weight is perfectly counteracted by the soft warmth of your bed. The immortal blue surrounds you, a vast, velvety armor of indigo that will guard your consciousness through the remaining hours of the dark. Let go of the very last thread of awareness now. Let yourself fall into the deep, undisturbed and beautiful sanctuary of a perfect night's rest. Sleep deeply, peacefully, completely at rest. The boundary between the physical room and the vast cosmic night dissolves entirely now, leaving you floating within a boundless ocean of pure, undisturbed tranquility. You are no longer just an observer of the Bluestone's ancient journey. You have become an intrinsic part of its timeless, unchanging silence. The deep, velvety hue of the ultramarine expands outward, far past the walls of your sanctuary, past the drifting clouds of the night sky, and into the infinite vacuum of the deep universe, where time has no meaning, and gravity is nothing more than a gentle, distant memory. In this magnificent expanse, there are no flashing lights, no sudden noises, and no heavy burdens to carry. The pure lazurite crystals that once slept undisturbed inside the frozen Afghan mountains for millions of years are now mirroring the absolute stillness of your mind. The darkness around you is not cold or empty. It is warm, soft, and infinitely spacious, a polled consciousness that holds your consciousness suspended in a state of pure, uninterrupted rest. Every word spoken throughout the day, every lingering thought, and every sharp memory fades into the beautiful indigo void, entirely into the beautiful void. Allow your breathing to remain completely effortless, a slow natural tide that flows smoothly through the quiet darkness of your chest. With every single exhalation, imagine yourself sinking a fraction deeper, letting go of the very last threads of the waking world. Letting go, the bed beneath you is a floating island of perfect security, keeping you warm and completely shielded of life, keeping you warm and completely chaos of the outside world. Welcoming. Your limbs have lost all their physical weight, dissolving into the soft texture of the blankets like morning mist, fading into a calm, clear sky. Your jaw is completely loose, your forehead is smooth, and the tiny muscles around your eyes have surrendered entirely to the heavy, peaceful pull of a deep, natural sleep. There is absolutely nothing you need to fix tonight. Nothing you need to plan for tomorrow, and nowhere else you need to be. You are perfectly anchored in the absolute stillness of the present moment, wrapped in a protective, sacred mantle of the deep celestial blue. The long journey of the stone has reached its final, eternal quietude, and all moving pieces of the past have settled into their resting places. The miners who struck the rock in the frozen heights have long since gone to rest. The camels that walked the dusty trails of the Silk Road have vanished into the shadows of history. The Venetian ships have found their permanent harbours, and the master painter in Rome has laid down his brush. Under the immortal canopy of his finished fresco, the human epic that brought this colour from the deep earth to the high ceilings of the world has settled into a state of perfect balance. And now, your own daily journey joins this grand lineage of rest. The efforts of your day, the steps you took, and the thoughts you turned over in your mind are all safely completed, tucked away in the past. The silence of the universe is absolute, a profound respect for this moment of your total surrender to the dark. Let the velvety darkness wash over the very last fragments of your awareness, smoothing out the edges of your thoughts. Until they are beautifully soft and formless, your mind is stepping away from the waking world completely, slipping beneath the calm, clear surface of a deep and dreamless ocean of sleep. The deep blue light fades into a warm, gentle shadow, holding your spirit in a state of absolute protection, unconditional safety, and total peace. The cosmos is quiet, the room is perfectly still, the night is completely safe. Sleep now, deeply, peacefully, completely at rest, under the eternal watch of the immortal blue. The echoes of the modern city and the last tangible anchors of the waking world, leaving your consciousness floating within a boundless, pristine void of pure, dark tranquility. The room around you has transformed into a perfect vessel of silence, where the air is perfecting warmth that wraps around you like an invisible shroud. In this deep layer of the night, the magnificent ultramarine colour does not exist as something to be seen with the physical eyes. Instead, it has dissolved into the very essence of your internal landscape, filling the quiet spaces behind your closed eyelids with a rich, velvety indigo. This is the ultimate resting state of the ancient stone, no longer being broken by fire, no longer being tossed upon stormy seas, and no longer being pressed by human hands. It has achieved a state of absolute, perfect equilibrium, an eternal monument to the deep, unhurried peace that is now spreading through every corner of your mind. The entire universe seems to have shrunk into this single warm room, holding its breath in absolute reverence for your moment of total undisturbed rest. Let your physical body sink even deeper into this profound, heavy state of total relaxation, giving up the very last fractions of resistance to the comforting pull of the bed. Feel how the mattress completely supports your spine, cradling your neck, your shoulders, and your limbs with a gentle, unyielding strength that makes you feel completely weightless yet perfectly grounded. Every breath you take is a slow, rhythmic whisper of peace, an unhurried wave that rises softly in your chest and falls away into the dark, carrying with it any microscopic remnants of the day's worries. Your hands are completely loose and open, your fingers resting naturally against the soft sheets, entirely freed from the need to grasp or hold. The tiny muscles across your forehead, around your eyes, and along your jaw have completely unraveled, melting into a state of total, blissful neutrality. There are no more thoughts to sequence, no more memories to review, and no more expectations to meet. You are perfectly safe, entirely protected, and completely permitted to surrender to the beautiful, welcoming dark. Behind your closed eyes, the final fragments of the long historical journey begin to blend into the soft, formless patterns of a deep and dreamless sleep. The microscopic flecks of gold pyrite that once sparkled under the candlelight of the old Roman workshop now appear as faint, gentle glimmers in the vast, quiet cosmos of your mind, not flashing or bright, but breathing softly like distant ancient stars waking up in a peaceful night sky. The deep blue ocean that once carried the colour merchant S-ships is now a calm, motionless sea of indigo within your awareness, its waters completely still, holding your thoughts suspended in a state of perfect, weightless tranquility. Every element of the past has found its final beautiful resolution, and the rhythmic cadence of the story has slowed down to an absolute standstill. You are no longer tracking the passage of time. The minutes and hours have dissolved into a single beautiful moment of pure uninterrupted existence. The darkness is now complete, and the world is beautifully, perfectly quiet. You are tucked away securely in the very heart of the night, entirely insulated from the speed, the noise, and the demands of the outer universe. There is nothing left to analyze, nothing left to remember, and nothing left to do. You have reached the perfect state of rest, where's the only reality that matters. And heavy comfort. The immortal blue surrounds you like a vast, velvety suit of armor, protecting your sleep and guarding your dreams from any disturbance. Let go of the very last thread of awareness now. Allow yourself to fall completely into the deep, undisturbed and beautiful sanctuary of a perfect night's rest. Sleep, deeply, peacefully, completely at rest, under the eternal watch of the immortal blue. The final threads of conscious thought are now unraveling completely, gently floating away into the absolute vacuum of a deep, unbroken slumber. The boundary between your physical surroundings and the infinite expanse of the universe has ceased to exist, leaving your spirit suspended in a vast, timeless sea of pure indigo tranquility. Hive up. There are no echoes of the waking day left to disturb you, no lingering images of the world outside, and no voices to break the magnificent, sacred silence that has settled over your mind. The deep, velvety colour of the ultramarine has expanded until it fills everything. A protective and infinite horizon that cradles unconditional safety. With a profound, joy. This is a space of pure stillness, a sanctuary where time has completely lost its forward march, stretching out into an endless, beautiful moment of absolute rest. The journey of the Lapis Lazuli has found its ultimate spiritual resolution within your own peace. Every atom of your being is now in perfect harmony with this cosmic quiet, perfectly balanced, entirely secure, and utterly still. Allow your physical form to sink even further into the welcoming depths of your bed, completely heavy, soothing, pulling your weight. To this sea, surrender. Your mattress holds you with absolute certainty, a warm and protective fortress from the friction and insulates you from the noise, friction, and relentless speed of the modern world. With each slow, effortless breath, feel a wave of profound relaxation washing over your body, smoothing out the very last fractions of tightness held within your muscles. Your shoulders are completely loose. Your hands are soft and motionless against the sheets, and your limbs feel beautifully heavy as if they are resting at the very bottom of a calm, undisturbed ocean. The muscles in your face have completely relaxed, and your foreheads are sealed shut by the comforting weight of a deep and natural exhaustions. Bud exhaustible. You are completely permitted to let go of the edge of the waking world now. There are no tasks left to fulfill, and no thoughts to turn over in the dark, and no thoughts to turn over. You are safe, you are protected, and you are entirely at rest. Behind the quiet sanctuary of your closed eyes, The universe has slowed down to an absolute standstill. The microscopic sparks of gold pyrite that once caught the candlelight of the ancient workshop are now nothing more than faint, breathing glimmers in the vast, velvet cosmos of your mind, distant stars fading softly into the background of a dreamless landscape. The deep blue sky that the master painter anchored to the stone ceiling has become your own private sky that shields your sleep from any disturbance, that made disturbance, and every historical road, every stormy sea, and every laborious step of the stone-long journey has dissolved into this single motionless point of total tranquility. You are floating within a sea of pure, undisturbed eternity, where the passing of hours has no meaning, and the world outside doesn't exist. Everything has been perfectly resolved, and the silence around you is absolute, holding you in a gentle, weightless embrace. Let yourself slide down into the deepest, darkest waters of this peaceful indigo ocean, allowing the soft currents of sleep to carry you completely away from the waking shore. Feel the heavy comfort of the night wrapping around your thoughts, turning them into soft, formless shadows that gently dissolve into the dark blue field. Your breathing is incredibly light and steady, a quiet rhythmic whisper that marks your entry into a perfect, undisturbed rest. The long epic of the Lapis Lazuli is finished, and your own daily journey has reached its beautiful conclusion. There is nothing left to analyze, nothing left to remember, and nothing left to do but surrender to the deep, nurturing dark. Sleep now, deeply, peacefully, completely at rest, under the eternal watch of the blue. The vast night holds your consciousness in perfect, unchanging equilibrium, where the passing of hours has lost all meaning. The deep blue mantle of the Madonna on the ancient Roman vault continues to exist in a dimension entirely beyond the reach of time, glowing silently under the soft silver rays of the moon. The microscopic lazurite crystals, which once lay hidden for millennia in the frozen dark of the earth, are now locked in their final crystalline matrix, radiating a quiet, ancient frequency of absolute rest. This immortal colour, born from fire and refined through saps, does not fade or decay. It stands as a permanent monument to stillness, a fragment of the infinite sky anchored to the heavy bones of the earth. As you rest in the quiet sanctuary of your dark room, let this protective blue expand within your inner mind, transforming into a soft blanket of light that shields your spirit from the friction of the world. The universe has dropped its endless demands, silenced its crowded streets, and slowed its frantic pace to join you in this sacred moment of completer, undisturbed tranquility. Allow your form to surrender to the heavy embrace of gravity, letting your body melt into the deep support of your mattress. Feel the solid foundation beneath you as a safe harbour, a shield that completely insulates you from the speed of the outer universe. Your shoulders have dropped completely, releasing the very last grains of tightness they carried through the long hours of the day. Your hands are soft, open, and motionless against the sheets, entirely freed from the need to grasp, hold, or achieve. The muscles in your face, along your jaw, and around your eyes have relaxed into a state of total blissful neutrality. Your eyelids feel beautifully heavy, weighted down by the gentle touch of a natural exhaustion that signals your readiness for the dark. There is no need to move a single muscle or think a structured thought. You are completely permitted of your own your bed, carried away by the slow tide of your own breathing. In and out, a perfect unhurried rhythm that mimics the quiet ancient breathing of the earth itself. Every hand that ever touched the sacred stone across the long centuries has now found its own perfect, eternal resting place. The miners who split the rock in the dark of the Badakhshan mountains are asleep. The caravan leaders who guided the slow camels across the burning sands have faded into the shadows of the past. The Venetian sailors who watched the horizon over the rocking waves have reached their final, quiet harbours. And the master painter who stood on the high scaffolding in Rome has long since laid down his brush. Their labours are finished, their stories are resolved, and the physical deterioration on the silent walkers has reached its destination on the silent wall. The Stone-S journey is your journey, a lineage of patience culminating in this single point of perfect peace. You are the keeper of this ancient quiet, resting safely under the same immortal sky that has stood through the turning of the centuries. Let the deep indigo light absorb the very last, fragile anchor of your awareness, smoothing out the edges of your thoughts until they become completely soft, vague, and formless. Your mind is stepping away from the shore of the waking world entirely, slipping beneath the calm, clear surface of a dreamless ocean of perfect sleep. The darkness around you is a rich space that cradles your consciousness, protecting your rest from any disturbance. You have reached the perfect equilibrium, where the weight of your body is completely balanced by the total comfort of your bed. There is nothing left to analyze, nothing left to remember, and nothing left to do but surrender to the deep, beautiful dark. Sleep now, deeply, peacefully, completely at rest, under the eternal watch of the immortal blue